Welcome back to Hannity. We are broadcasting live tonight from Shelby Park in Eagle Pass. We are in the state of Texas, the free state of Texas. Still with us for an exclusive interview is former President Donald J. Trump. We've talked a lot about the border, the number one issue. Let me move on to some other issues. Probably more than anybody else, I picked up that Joe Biden, this is before the 2020 election, is weak and frail and a cognitive mess. And I would say in the last 3+ years, he has deteriorated greatly. I want to play a montage of the president. Take a look.
I guess I should clear my mind here a little bit and not say what I'm really thinking. There's some movement. There's been a response from there's been a response from the opposition, but yes, I'm sorry, from Hamas. I think that, as you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate. When I said, we pushed all these programs, I said I'm going to be a president for everybody, whether you live in a red state or a green state.
Red state, green state, and President el-Sisi of Mexico. I would be Egypt the last time I checked. Mr. President, what is your reaction to that? 86% of the American people believe he is too old to take on what is the hardest job in the world.
Well, I hate to hear when they use the word old, because I don't believe it's old. I know people that are 87, 88. I know people that are 90 in the 90s.
I know people 99.
I mean, Bernie Marcus, as an example, he's 95. There are people that are just as sharp, it seems to me, just as sharp as they ever were. There's something, I guess, wrong. I don't want to, I feel I'm at a conflict when you ask me that question, because we're opponents, and I don't know, it's a tough question to answer. It's easy, the answer, but I don't like doing it. He's got some difficulty, but it's not the age, because I know a lot of people that are much older than him that are 100% sharp, and I think most people agree with that.
I don't believe he'd be capable of sitting down to do an interview like this. It'd be when I debated Gavin Newsom, I said, your problem is the guy that you are bragging about could not have this exchange.
Yeah, he could not do this interview. He couldn't do an interview where you ask even a few questions. And I said this morning, I say it loud and clear, he should take a cognitive test. A president should take a cognitive. Now, they say that's unconstitutional. For whatever reason, it's unconstitutional. But I took 2 of them, and I aced both of them, I'm very proud to say, meaning I got it all right. Ronnie Jackson did one. They're not that easy. They show you the first ones are pretty easy. And then you get into the middle category. Then you get to the end questions. And very few people could answer those questions. They're actually very tough.
I've seen the test.
But I think it's important that there be some form. We have this man negotiating nuclear weapons with Putin and with President Xi, and he has no idea what's going on. And he can't find his way off a platform when he's speaking. You have 5 stairs, and he ends up walking into a wall. And whenever I imitate him, they say Trump had a hard time getting off a platform. I do, every once in a while, I'll do things out of sarcasm, because I love sarcasm, but politically it never works, because they always turn it around on you. But I'll tell you what, it's not an age thing, but something's going on, and we can't take a chance. This is the most dangerous time in the history of the world. We have an incompetent president. Now, I used to treat him, and you know that, I called you. I said, you should take it easy on him.
By the way,
I used to call you.
This is a true story. You thought I was being too hard on him, and I was making too light of it. You told me. When
I got indicted, because nobody thought that was going to happen, including the fake news on the left. They said he'll never be indicted. Like on the January 6th, they went right up until the end. They'll never be indicted. You can't indict him on that. I made the beautiful speech that was actually a very nice speech. I said wonderful things on then Twitter, now Truth, because Truth is better than anything, in my opinion. But everybody has to go on Truth.
Did I read that you might make $4 billion?
Well, I'm not going to make. I mean, I own something that became very valuable. Truth has really become sort of the voice of America, the real voice of America. And it's what I use exclusively, and it's doing great. But when you take a look at all of the things that are going on in this world now, we need a man who's super competent. We need a man that can do it. He doesn't have a clue. When they indicted me, I said, now I can go after him, because this is what he did. And he indicted me 4 times. You could take the worst criminals in the world, they haven't been indicted 4 times. And I got indicted over nonsense, over pure nonsense, that the radical left said there's no way he's going to be in, like the thing in Manhattan. And why didn't they do it years ago? They should have done this years ago. They shouldn't have done it now right in the middle of an election. I don't even think if you look at DOJ, the regulation, rules and regulation, they don't even have the right to be doing it now. But they did it to interfere with the election. And when he did that, I said, now I can say it. Joe Biden is the most incompetent president we've ever had. He's the worst president we've ever had. He is a true threat to democracy because he's weaponized the FBI and the DOJ to go get his political opponent and many other people, Christians. He's really after the Catholics. I don't know what's going on with the Catholics, but for some reason there's something happening with the Catholics. I mean, I don't know how they can possibly vote for a Democrat or for him, but he's weaponized government at a level that nobody's ever seen before outside of a third world country.
Let me ask you, you actually said something to me before we came on the air today. Because the left tries to say, oh, he's going to be seeking revenge and using the Justice Department. I've talked at length at how you want to talk about the weaponization of justice. It is happening now in this country.
That's a real threat.
And that is a real threat. And you gave a very interesting answer about the issue that the left, oh, he would seek revenge. Recall what you just said to me?
I use this, and I tell people this. My revenge is going to be success. We're going to make this country so successful. We're going to do it rapidly. We're going to bring energy way down. We're going to bring inflation way down. We're going to get prices down. You look at the cost of food. You look at the cost of rent. You look at the cost of some of these things. It's just, you know, really disables our country.
You said, I'd never do to them what they've done to me. I'll let you pick it up.
I will be tough, and I will be fair, and I will be seeking to make America great again. You know, it's an expression that we came up with. I think it's probably the greatest in the history of this country, maybe in the history of the world. MAGA, make America great again. And when I see him, we will stop MAGA. I said, does he have any idea what MAGA means? It means make America great again. He wants to stop MAGA. I want to make America great again. Our country's in big trouble right now. You look at what we're looking at right now. We're looking at walls and fences. You know, with me, they knew they weren't going to be invited in. They weren't, lots of things weren't going to be happening. They're inviting millions of people into our country. And the saddest part is a lot of the people that are being invited in, you don't want in your country. They're very dangerous people.
Let me ask you this. You put out on Truth a statement when the Alabama court came back with the issue of in vitro fertilization, IVF.
I did.
I would argue that 2022, a lot of people thought overturning Roe v. Wade would end up being a good thing.
Right.
We know what the Democrats are going to do. They're going to demagogue Republicans like they always do. They're racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic, all that stuff. But more important, democracy in peril. They hate Donald Trump. January 6th. But then the issue of abortion. I think it played a very big part. They demagogued that issue in 2022 in the midterm, and I think it hurt Republicans. You took a strong stand on IVF. Where are you on that, and what is your message to other candidates, and where are you on abortion?
So I saw the IVF, and a judge in Alabama made a very harsh decision. It was very, very tough, and I came out immediately, and I said, we want to help women. This is fertilization. They're having a hard time having a baby, to put it very simply, and they're helped by clinics and others. And all of a sudden, it was stopped in Alabama, and I put out a very strong statement that we're totally in favor of it. I got a call from Katie Britt, a very wonderful young senator in Alabama, and she said friends of mine were coming up and like almost attacking her. They were so upset about it. And I said, what's the issue? What is it? Explain. What is it exactly? And we're talking about the IVF. And I said, we want that. We want people to help. We're on the side of women. And same thing on the abortion issue. The abortion issue, now, I'm for the exceptions like Ronald Reagan was for the exceptions. And I think it's very important to be—
Rape mother's life.
Correct, life of the mother. I think it's a very important thing, the exceptions. I also think that they are the radicals because they will kill the baby in 8 months, 9 months. Under Roe v. Wade, they had the right to kill the baby after birth. I mean, literally after birth in some cases.
Well, that was the governor of Virginia at the time.
That's right.
I was talking to your friend Gavin Newsom. I asked him 4 times in a row. I said, are there any limitations at all? He would not answer.
Yeah.
A lot of Democrats said that that no government official should ever get between a doctor and her patient. Okay, that means no exceptions, but Dobbs said 15 weeks.
Right.
That's just about a little over first trimester.
So more and more I'm hearing about 15 weeks, and I haven't decided yet. Also, we got it back to the states where it belongs. And by the way, a lot of states are taking very strong stances. Ohio voted.
15 states, 15 weeks.
Correct. I mean, a lot of states are taking very strong stances. You look at Kansas, Ohio, and it's going to be the law within the state. And they have gone, much different than a lot of people thought. But everybody on both sides said it has to be in the states. We did a very good thing, a very big thing, a very important thing. Probably hurt the Republicans because a lot of Republicans really didn't know how to talk about it. But you remember this, now it's in the states. A lot of states are taking a vote of their citizens, and votes are coming out both ways, but largely they're coming in with a certain number of weeks. And the number 15 is mentioned. I haven't agreed to any number. I'm going to see. We want to take an issue that was very polarizing and get it settled and solved so everybody can be happy. But I will say this. You look at the Democratic view, let's say the Democrats' view, that was a very radical view because they're willing to kill a baby in the 7th, 8th, 9th month. One thing, and you can look at polling all you want, when you get after a certain number of months, I mean, especially you get into 6, 7, 8, 9, and after birth,
that's infanticide.
Everybody doesn't want that to happen. I mean, almost everybody.
It was Northam who made that comment about, first the baby's born and then we'll take care of it, make it comfortable, and then the doctor and the mother will decide. All right. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.